Coming up next, Mighty Magiswords. Coming up next, Hi Hi Puffy Amiyumi. Coming up next, Bobby the Elder. Coming up next, The Bow. Coming up next, Pepper Ann. Coming up next, Horrid Henry. Coming up next, Octi Rules. Coming up next, The Madeline Show. Coming up next, The Owl House. Coming up next, Amphibia. Coming up next, Powerpuff. Coming up next, Laboratory. Coming up next, Grub. Coming up next, Hoppus. Coming up next, Gravity Falls. Coming up next, Big City Greens. Coming up next, Angelo. Coming up next, Garfield. Coming up next, Sherwood. Coming up next, Odie. Coming up next, Rosie. Coming up next, Tracy. Coming up next, Sophia. Coming up next, Elena.